So my topic today, as I said before, is women of Morocco, and I'm not going to take too much time, and thank you for coming. I will just talk in the following 25 minutes about this. Then we're going to open a discussion of like 10 minutes or 15 minutes about it. I'm sure you have a lot of questions about women. That's a sensitive issue, and hopefully you're not going to bombard me with questions. So women of Morocco. So generally speaking, we can say that the position of women in Morocco falls between that one in the West and that one some conservative Islamic countries. So it's an in-between position. And the struggle for women for their own rights started since the colonialism period from 1912 until 1956. Women participated in the struggle to gain the independence of Morocco, and also after it they have to struggle for, we can say, another type of colonialism, which is marginalizing women and assigning them the roles, the traditional domestic roles of raising children, sweeping, and all these things. So let me put you in the context. So I'm talking here about Morocco, and I'm not talking about other countries. So I don't have the right to talk about women in Tunisia or Saudi Arabia. I'm not involved in that, but I can talk about women in Morocco. So as you can see, Morocco is situated in the north of Africa. From the north we have Spain, and from the east we have Algeria, and the south we have Mauritania, and we have the Atlantic Ocean. Morocco has made big strides in promoting women's rights by issuing different couple of laws that strengthen women's position in social, political, and economic sphere, and we're going to see that. And also, what helps the promotion of women's rights is that the position of Morocco. And I'm here quoting from 1 John. He says that Morocco's history is a cultural crossroads between Africa and Europe, Islam and Christianity, Arab and Berber, perhaps allows for greater tolerance and stronger women's rights there than elsewhere in the Middle East or North Africa. So I think that the position of Morocco being between Europe and Africa, that helps a lot promoting women's rights. And during the French colonialism, I'm going to talk about some women, some examples of women who fought for the independence of Morocco, and they said at that time they left home, and it was uncommon to leave home. For a woman to go out, it was something strange. Women at that time, their main role was at home, and they were not allowed to go out or to participate in any activity outside the home. But at that time, that was the time when women broke this rule, and they had a vital and pivotal role in the resistance against the French and the Spanish colonialism. Spain was colonizing Morocco in the north, and France was in the middle, and also Spain was in the south. So I'm going to share with you these experiences of this. We have some women like the princess. There, we have some women, also nationalist women, and we have women of the armed resistance. I'm dividing that into two parts. So I'm going to talk about that in details. Well, we have women who were intellectual, and they were likely to go to school and be educated. And we have women who had never been to school, and they weren't lucky. So, and those women, they participated in the armed resistance, setting bombs, smuggling weapons, and doing all that stuff. And we're going to start with the first woman. She's the symbol of the emancipation in Morocco, because when the king in 1953, the king of Morocco was sent into exile by the French authorities, and at that time the Moroccan people didn't accept that, and they took to the streets and protested against that decision. And this is his daughter, and it was the first women in the history of Morocco, the women went to talk to people publicly about. She went there and she tried to. One of the main things that she was emphasizing is to send girls to schools, but at that time, because only men at that time would go to school and study, and she was the first woman to emphasize the right of women and girls to go to school. And she would go all over the Morocco and asking families to send their children, especially their girls, to school. And she relied on religious saying that all people are equal before God and they should have the same opportunity to go to school and study. And so she was aware of that, because that time religious society was a bit conservative, so she had to take that into account. And she would go with what we call ulama in Arabic, the religious scholars, to help her spread her ideas. And in 1947, her father gave a speech in Tangier, and she also, at that time, she seized the opportunity, and there was a crowd of men and women, and she talked to them about the importance of sending their children to school for the future of the nation. Another woman, Malika Al-Fasi, this is another woman who went to school. She was educated at home first by her father, and he would bring teachers to the house to teach her, and she was good. She studied French and English literature, and she was the first woman to write in magazine. It's Al Maghrib, and she would call for sending girls to schools and the importance of sending girls to school. And I have a quote from her. She says, to suggest that, so she's talking here, that girls should continue in school to the level of secondary school was to suggest that girls who had already reached puberty would be out walking through the streets and would study in school together with boys in Morocco in 1935. This was a shocking suggestion. Remember that at that time, because society would never accept students, for example, boys and girls in the same class, because there was some very conservative structures in society. And she, as I said, she wrote in the Maghrib magazine one of the most influential articles. She wrote about the Renaissance of women. That was a very influential article, and she wrote it anonymously. She didn't mention her name, and that reminded us of the old books that were written before in the old centuries, where some women didn't have the right to write books, so they would just choose a main name or just put it anonymously. So the same thing for her. And she was very interested in politics, and she would go with her cousin because she belongs to a very rich family, bourgeois, les bourgeois of Fès, and she would go with them in discussions about the future of the country and how to resist French colonialism. And she also was the first person to sign, the first woman to sign